Okay. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Welcome everyone to this third day online session related to soil. We will begin our session now with the invocation prayers. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namo Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Prasharine Nirvisheshashamyavadi Paschatadeshatayine Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshuramritam Yena Tasmai Sree Gurave Namaha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gauravaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Shraddhai Namaha. Welcome everyone. There are now like around 23 participants has joined. Like now, yeah, I think slowly the registered participants are joining us. Now it's 24. Okay, still I think we can go ahead because the time is very less to present this topic. So we will begin it. We will just revise like our last two sessions, what we have listened from our speakers, from our main speakers, from Madhav Prabhu and our Dr. Sri Kumar Prabhu. Like Madhav Prabhu, he was explaining about the consequences of about the soil and about the like how much organic matter are we using, how much soil we are using, what can be the consequences, and the other things and all. Yeah, and about like in our previous session, the topic was about the functions of the farm in the ecosystem. So where Sri Kumar Prabhu was explaining like why there is a disfigurement in society even after having the proper objectives. Like what is that main unintended consequences arising? Like it can be a floods or it can be like malnutrition or any other thing. So what is that cause? Like what we have taken the decisions. So what is that the cause of the actual problem, which the decision which we have taken, and what can be the cure? So and what is that paradigms which are influencing on the decision making? Like what are the decisions which are based on influenced by the so-called paradigms? Actually, what is that paradigm? And explained very beautifully. And what are the solutions? How to come out of those paradigms? To solve this, like the unintended consequences, we need to shift from the paradigm. So that influenced or whatever decisions which we are taking, and by that decision we are facing unintended consequences. So this is like Prabhu explains, we need a paradigm shift from Prabhu says what is that human doing to as a human being. So what is that functions? Like Prabhupada, like our Dr. Sri Kumar Prabhu explains about the functions and utility part. So for every living being in this universe, like God has given us functions. So what are those functions? Like for example, if you say what is the function of a farmer? Function of a farmer is like managing and or orchestrating the functions of the living being and the other natural resources to achieve abundance without depleting of resources. So this is a function of the farm. And what about the functions of a cow? Cow, the main function of a cow is to graze, and to give milk to its calf. The function of the udder is to give milk to the calf. So and also further, Sri Kumar very nicely presented how Mother Earth never attempts to farm without its livestock. And yeah, so now today's topic was about the I'm just opening the schedule. Yeah, today's topic is functions of plants. Today is day 3, and tomorrow day 4 is functions of landscape. So I would request our Dr. Sri Kumar Prabhu to please take over the session of the today's topic. Hare Krishna. Prabhu, please unmute.
Yes.
Yes, we can hear.
Hare Krishna. Hare
Yes,
Krishna
yes.
to all.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Share the screen, Prabhu.
Yes. Yes, Prabhu. Yes, yes. You, while you are sharing, just enable the audio also.
Yes.
Ploughing is a pretty radical idea.
Hare Krishna. So the topic to be discussed today is regarding the function of plants. Thank you, Vasthama Prabhu, for giving a good discussing on what we actually studied the last 2 days. And so, as he said, we have understood that there is a function for each and every being in the system, in the ecosystem. Even for each and every part of a being, also there is a function, like we discussed on the function of the coconut husk. So, likewise, now we will look into the function of plants. So, the context for this presentation, why is it that we are studying the function of a farmer? Why is it that we are studying the function of a plant, the livestock, all these functions, why we are studying this? We have a context for which we are striving for to achieve. That is, we want stable families, living peaceful lives in prosperity and physical security, while free to pursue our own spiritual or religious beliefs. We want adequate nutritious food and clean water, with time for family, friends, and community, and leisure for cultural and other pursuits. We want real education that ensures real wealth and health in balanced life. And to achieve this, we need to behave in a particular way. That is, it all to be ensured for many generations to come on a foundation of ethical and human behavior to all life, regenerating soils, biologically diverse communities on Earth's land and in our rivers, lakes, and oceans. It is a holistic, generic context that we have prepared for this presentation. And the aim of this presentation is this is the aim for the presentation. And we had discussed about the paradigms also. And so the paradigm on which this presentation is based is on the universal paradigm, that is the Ishopanishad mantra, Om Purnamadam, that you know. And what is the highlights of this paradigm is, that also we discussed, it is syntropic. The more you grow, the more fertility it generates. But what we see now, the more you grow, the more depleted the soil is. But as per this paradigm, we need to understand that it is the fertility has to improve, not decrease. So then there is a way to do. We have to follow certain principles. So what went wrong? That is how the course will go on. Then, so when the depletion happens, then Naturally, people think the increasing population will deplete these resources. But as far as this paradigm is concerned, if population rise doesn't matter, these resources shouldn't deplete. The resources are available at this site, no need for any inventions. There is no scope for any inventions in this particular ecosystem because all the things are provided at the site where you want. The resources you need to live, to keep the soul and body together in this ecosystem is provided at the site where you want. No difference between farm and farmer as we are a being in the farm. The farm, when we are a being in the farm, why should we see as a separate entity in the farm? There are no parts in nature. Each species is something that is simultaneously a whole in and of itself, as well as a part of the larger whole. The whole is more than the sum of its parts. So this is the paradigm on which it is there. And now we are entering a different section called the ecosystem literacy. See, we have heard about the word literacy. It means to learn to read and write. But ecosystem literacy means to learn and understand what the ecosystem is telling you, to understanding from the land on which we live. What is she trying to tell you to do? That is what ecosystem literacy is. To be a land medic, like a medical doctor who understands from the human being whom he is treating, or a veterinarian by looking at the animal, how he finds out what the problem with the animal is. The same way it is to become a land medic. By looking at the land, we should be able to say, what is it that she is trying to tell us? Because whatever happens, it is going to affect us also. It is our health. The ecosystem health means it is our health. So we should know to take care of our own body. Even though we may be owning a farm, but factually we are managing an ecosystem in which we are a being. That is the thing that is important here. So in the organic movement, it is built on a fundamental principle that the birthright of all living things, all the living beings in this ecosystem, it's their birthright to have health. This law is true for the soil life, plant, animal, and man. The health of these four is one connected chain. That is, the health of the soil connected to the health of the plant, it is connected with the health of the animal, and it is connected with the health of the man. It is a linked chain. Any weakness or defect in the health of an earlier link in the chain is carried on to the next and succeeding links until it reaches the last, namely man. Simply means soil, anything happening to the soil affects the plant, it affects the animals, and it will affect the man. So it is a linked chain, and anything that affects the previous one is, if it is the animal that is affected, naturally man is affected. The widespread vegetable and animal pests and diseases are the evidence of a great failure in the health of the plant. That is the second and the third links of the chain. That is, any problem you see with the animals, actually we have to look to there is some problem with the plants. So if there is something wrong with the plants, then we have to see there is something wrong with the soil. So if you see a pest on a plant or on the animals, we have to actually link it with the previous thing. As a consequence of this failure in the plant, that is, a pest attack is there, so there is something wrong with the plant, and the animal links, there will be an impairment in the human population. So from this, we understand that a pest or a disease happens to this plant when the plant is not healthy. So by shifting from an inorganic farming to an organic farming, we are trying to change the pesticide that we have used. That is, if you are using a chemical or a synthetic pesticide, now we are using an organic pesticide. But still it means that the plant is not healthy. We have only changed the way we are doing things. That will only change, it doesn't make a major change, because that too is a pesticide. Even if it is an organic one, that too is a pesticide. We are understanding that it is because the soil health, that plant is not healthy. In that case, the plant is going to invite pests or insects will come and attack it. So then by changing from a synthetic pesticide or a chemical pesticide to an organic pesticide, How is it that the plant is going to become healthy? So by doing that, we are only changing the way we do things. But if we want to get a good food out of it, we should change the way we see things. That is, we have to see that the plant is not healthy. So we have to change the way the soil is functioning and make the plant healthy so that there will be no pest attack. Then only it is a major change. Otherwise, we may feel now our organic produce, we are using only organic pesticide. Then we may think it is a good produce. No, we are on the same boat. Only thing is we may not be getting the inorganic or synthetic pesticide in our body, but the produce that we are eating is still the same, whether we are using any pesticides. So that is the meaning here. So the general failure in the last three links is to be attributed to the failure in the first link, the soil. The undernourishment of the soil is at the root of all. So actually, we are now saying there is something wrong with the soil. Actually, it is not something wrong with the soil. It is not the soil itself, it is the soil life. There is no life in the soil. That is the most important element. So when there is no life in the soil, we call it dirt. So that is why the topic is named as dirt to soil. So a soil which has no life is called dirt. So here the soil that we are handling is dirt because there is no life. That is what is creating a problem in the plant. So which is the life that you see in the plant? See the soil, food web. All the that we described, defined in the last one, all the living, movable things in the system and immovable systems, that is what the life constitutes of. So be it a microorganism or a macroorganism, whatever, whichever being is living is totally called a life. And those which are micro, that is living in the soil, which beneath our feet, is what constitutes the soil life. That is what gives. And when they are alive, is the produce that comes on the soil also becomes healthy, and those who are thriving on the food that comes above the soil becomes healthy. So you see what all things are living in the soil. One small portion of it is when it's expanded itself, what all things are living in the soil. They're all beings in the soil. And look at the micro life. 1 tablespoon of soil has approximately 1 billion soil, more than the people on earth. 1 spoon has. How much bacteria is in this 1 spoon? Actually, different types of soil life is there in 1 teaspoon. So imagine what will be the life that you will be having in 1 acre of land. Imagine a person owning 1 acre of land, and there are 4 people living in that farm, and we have 10 cows. Just imagine, if you ask how many people are there, you will say 4. How many animals are there? We will say 10. But actually, that is not the number you are managing. It is millions and billions of lives that we are managing. We have to see the whole life, and that is how we have to manage. Then only it becomes a holistic decision. So how is it that the soil health is defined? The continued capacity of a soil to function as a vital living ecosystem that sustains plants, animals, and humans. The continued capacity means 365 days it has to be functional. Not only when one plant is growing. 365 days there should be, that soil should be able to sustain life. That is what is meant. That is only when you say the soil is healthy. Not just when you grow a plant. 365 days, there should be life in the soil, which sustains the plants, animals, and thereby human beings. Can we expect this continued functional capacity from a soil that is bare, hungry, thirsty, with high fever? And when the soil, the sun directly hits the soil, it gets heated up because she's exposed to direct sunlight. Can we get the same the continued capacity from such a soil? A bleeding landscape, a land that permits the soil to get eroded when it rains. You can see on the left side the soil erosion. The color indicates that the soil is eroding. Can we get more food? I mean, are we able to produce more food than eroding soil in such a condition? It has been found that for every ton of food that is produced, more than 20 tons of soil is getting eroded. That is the picture. And that we understood from the last class, the video I showed, we have only, as per the UN, 60 more harvests remaining. That is the picture. The 60 more years means 60 more harvest. So that is the picture now because of the erosion that is happening. And a landscape that is 3rd-degree burn, can we expect the same type of growth or the health in the continued capacity of that soil? And this soil is naked, hungry, thirsty, and running a fever. We cannot expect it from such a soil. We have to change the way we see things. That is what not the way we do things. Simply changing the way we do things won't work. We have to change the way we see things. That should lead to the way we do things. Such a poorly managed landscape ultimately brings the elephant into our living room. So to achieve the quality of life we need a holistically managed landscape. That means all the beings in the farm should be managed at this simultaneously, not in parts. That is what is needed. But the known truth is that without agriculture, is it possible to have a city, stock market, banks, university, places of worship, or art? Without agriculture, can the life be sustained? Any of these things, will it happen? Agriculture is the foundation of civilization and stable economy. That means our soil is our future, and quality soil brings quality life. So the context that we had prepared is for a quality life, and that can happen only when we behave ethically as a being to the soil. So now there is a saying, we have to be sustainable. So now we understood where we are standing. Only 60 more harvest. So if we say we want to sustain, do you want to sustain at this level? That is not any growth is not there. No? Already it is degraded. Why do you want to sustain on the degraded soil? That is where we are. That is degenerated. That is where we are now. Why do you want to sustain that? Now we have to think regeneratively first. That is what we need to be. We have to regenerate that land, bring it to a level, and when we get there to that abundant level, then we will think of sustaining. But now what we need is regeneration and not just sustainability. Sustainability will lead to stagnation and loss of interest among the people. Only when it is regenerative, it can cause abundance in the ecosystem. So how do we convert this dirt? Dirt means soil without life, or dust, into a living soil. What is the method by which we can do it? We have understood from the paradigm that we don't need any inventions. It is already there with us. The resource is at the site. So then what is that resource that can convert the right hand to the left hand soil? What is that? So you see the right side picture, how that soil is looking like. How can we convert it to that particular type? There is no life without soil and no soil without life. Soil means there should be life. Then only it can be called soil. So it is the method at site provided by the creator to convert the dust into soil. Dirt is thirsty, hungry, wounded, bleeding, and with thirst. How to make dirt into soil? Soil cannot grow or form in the absence of plants. So the resource provided by the Lord to convert the dust into soil or the dirt into soil is the plants only. Only plants can do it. It is a resource that is provided by the Lord. We don't need any invention or anything that we need. We don't need any factory to bring back the dust back to soil. How is it? What is the function of the plant that enables it to develop the soil? It is the photosynthesis. Is the function of a plant. It is the process by which the soil can live and become more fertile. It is by the process that is there that the plant is functioning. The function of the plant is to do photosynthesis, and it is with that photosynthesis that we can bring back the dust to soil. And now we will see how that can happen. The photosynthetic capacity of the soil and the photosynthetic rate influences soil healing. We need to understand what photosynthetic capacity is and what photosynthetic rate is, that we will see in the coming slides. So a fertile, humus-rich topsoil is a product of photosynthesis, and as a result of the photosynthesis, microbial resynthesis. So the product of photosynthesis, again resynthesized by the microbes, microbial life in the soil, and that is how a fertile soil is produced. So photosynthesis fuels all the life on earth. So we need to understand what photosynthesis is. See, we have learned in our science class, photosynthesis is carbon dioxide plus H2O in the presence of sunlight produces sugar and oxygen. True, but there is more to it. After the invention of the microscope and after 1986, they really started understanding more what is happening. So the latest understanding is that, as you see, when the photosynthesis takes place, just imagine it is producing 100% of sugar that is produced by the plant, of which 40% of the plant sugars stored in above ground mass. That is, that 40% of the total sugar produced goes above the soil for the plant above mass. Whatever is, that is the stalk, the leaves, the production of fruits, the production of flowers. So that full sugar goes to be used for the formation of the biomass above the soil. That 40% goes. So now you have 60% remaining. Of that 60%, 30% goes for the development of the roots. And the remaining 30% sugars, it is exuded out of the roots into the soil to feed vast microbial population that makes the plant healthy. So it is divided by 3, and depending on the stage of growth, this 40, 30, 30 can change. When it is in the growing stages, more maybe in the root stage, to the exuded out. It varies, but more or less on an average, this is how the sugar and the proteins and everything that is synthesized or produced by the photosynthesis gets utilized. So by a plant coming there and performing the photosynthesis and giving the exudate means just that it is oozed out from the roots to the soil, so that it wets the soil and feeds the soil life. And it is the soil life, that is what we read before, microbial resynthesis. It is the soil life that goes out, takes the photosynthesis sugars, using that energy, they start to bring the nutrients and feed it back to the soil. So plant converts sunlight, water, and carbon dioxide into sugars, and this is how that method goes. It's nature's sophisticated capture mechanism, this photosynthesis. This is how it is being used. So now I want to ask you a question. Which is the plant that is not performing photosynthesis? All the plants with the roots, with the leaves, are performing photosynthesis. And they are all building soil by using the exudate into the soil. How is it that we can, then okay, then what, which is the plant that is not, which has to be removed from the soil because it is not performing photosynthesis? There is no plant that can be removed because the function of the plant is photosynthesis. It can only add nutrients to the soil. Now here what we have to understand is, we know that the sugar produced by mango is not the same that is produced by jackfruit. It is not the same that is produced by pineapple. It is not the same that is produced by sapota. It's varying. That means different types of sugars are produced. For green beans, it is different. So that means different types of sugars are being produced and pulled down. And it is that diverse sugars that needs to be sufficient in quantity that can cause an explosion of plant life and explosion of nutrients in the food that is produced over the soil. That is how it is. So we need the diversity, not the plants alone. We have to understand each plant is producing a different types of sugars, and that should come into these roots, so that the roots can take different types of nutrients, and it can get accumulated in each and every plant that is around, that is producing fruits and flowers. So nature's process to produce soil. Then I told you how it is being produced. It is just an illustration in this video.
Plants with sunlight and water perform photosynthesis. They pull in carbon from the air and turn it into carbohydrates, sugars. Then they pump some of those sugars down through their roots to feed microorganisms who use that carbon to build soil. Voila, carbon moved. Plants pump it in and soil stores it. Nature's living technology is amazing.
So the process of pumping the carbon in the atmosphere through the plant and oozing it, exudating out is called the carbon pump. And you can see from the right side the picture as the roots go down, how the color, deep color on the soil changes as the roots go deeper and deeper. So this is how the fertility or the stable carbon is formed. In the next video, I will show you how it is being formed. The stable carbon is being formed. So building healthy soil solves everything. So plants grow by making carbohydrates, that is sugars, from carbon dioxide through the leaves with water, and it produces the sugars and it goes deep down. They share these sugars with soil life. You can see how it is illustrations given. And in exchange, it feeds the plant. This process builds the soil. This is how soil building takes place. And what happens down once the exudate is there is the fungi come and attach to the roots. They attach to feed on the carbohydrates. In return, they supply water to the plant, increasing the root capacity. Now, fungi means kilometers it will go. So it increases the root mass through the consumption of carbohydrates and production of a sticky protein called glomalin. It is the skin of the fungus. So that is what becomes the humus, and that sticky substance causes the mycorrhizal aggregates. On the other side, same way it feeds the bacteria also, and that also produces a sticky substance, and that is called the bacterial aggregates, so soil aggregates. So these bacterial substances and concerns for bacteria, they are eaten by the nematodes, protozoa, earthworm, arthropods, and they form the bacterial aggregates. Healthy soil is full of carbon-based soil aggregates and soil life. This is how it happens. So now, when there is healthy soil, that leads to increased soil carbon because of the pump. It is there. But in the other case where there is nothing growing, there is no soil carbon buildup. As the carbon builds up more, the water infiltration increases and the water retention increases. But in the same place where there is no plant, there is increased water runoff, leading to flood and drought. Whereas in the healthy soil, increased soil aggregation, more fertility, and it is able to feed the world. Decreased aggregation and soil life, less fertility, and more soil erosion causing desertification. Then the increased nutrient availability and decreased nutrient availability. That is how the difference takes place. So now when this exudate comes out and the glomalin, and it forms an aggregate. This one small piece, that is the aggregates. And soil is a collection of these aggregates. So you can see the down one on the right side. It is a collection of aggregates, and you see the root and all. See the left one, there is no root, there is no aggregate. It is just dead soil. So it is when this exudation takes place, and when it is fed by the soil life, and when then there are roots passing through this, it becomes an aggregate, and that is what holds the soil. And so the stable form of carbon is more when the carbon pump takes place. Carbon pump means what? The carbon dioxide through the process of photosynthesis is being pumped into the soil in the form of exudates. And the further changes that takes place with the help of the fungus and the bacteria, and they form stable carbon. That is what is photosynthesis, and that is how soil, the dirt, can be converted back to soil.
When you're looking at the above ground part of the plant that most people see and the roots down into the soil, That plant is putting out foods. Every bit of the surface of that plant is pouring out foods to feed the proper sets of microorganisms in the balances that the plant requires. So it's putting out what's called in the scientific world exudates. The fruit, the blossoms, all of the surface leaves, bark, stems, everything on that plant is putting out an exudate for the purpose of growing bacteria and fungi. And that's really the only reason the plant's putting those foods out. Down in the root system, all of the roots, the structural roots, the lateral roots, the root hairs, the fine roots, they're all putting out foods to feed the bacteria and fungi. And of course, if a plant was putting out food that would feed a disease-causing organism, the plant would be dead. So when this plant growing its roots through the soil starts pumping out all this food, the bacteria grow, the fungi grow, and we have now 1 million bacteria per teaspoon of soil around that root system. We have, miles and miles and miles of fungal hyphae around the root system. So we've got a castle wall. We're protecting. And if the plant's doing that, how's it doing it? Through the exudates, through the foods that it's putting out. Simple sugars, protein, and then carbohydrate. What is that a recipe for? Cakes and cookies. So your plant is dumping cakes and cookies all over its surface, every single surface, putting out cakes and cookies to feed these bacteria and fungi so they grow to really high numbers and are protecting that root system from all of the diseases that would be trying to come in. So in a healthy soil that has the proper set of biology, that plant is going to be able to grow everything it needs to grow to protect that root. And of course, then if we've got all these bacteria and fungi growing, here come the predators of the bacteria and fungi. And when a protozoan eats a bacterium, it releases nutrients in a now plant-available form. They release nitrogen, phosphorus, sulfur, magnesium, calcium, iron, zinc, copper, you name it, the whole list of nutrients that your plant requires. They release those nutrients in a plant-available form, as long as we maintain that biology in the soil.
This is one.
When you're looking at...
So now this is clearly given in Srimad Bhagavatam, 7th chapter, 7th canto, 14th chapter, 7th floor. The natural products created by the Supreme Personality of God should be utilized to maintain the bodies and souls of living entities. So clear. The natural produce, that is what is produced by the Supreme Lord, not value-added products. What is naturally given to us. The necessities of life are of 3 types. What we need to be able to keep the body and the soul together are 3 types. Those produced from the sky, from the earth, and from the atmosphere. So it is so clearly to understand from the photosynthesis, what is it that is produced from the sky? Sunlight, rain. From the earth, the soil microbes and the soil life, and the micro minerals from the soil, and from the atmosphere, the carbon, the nitrogen, everything comes from the atmosphere. So this is the photosynthesis is just a scientific explanation of the necessities as described in Srimad Bhagavatam 7:14-7. These are the resources that we need to keep the soul and the body together. And isn't it provided at the site? Do we have to invent anything to create this? Now that we know that the soil gets damaged only when there is no plant living on it. So it's so easy, Why should we call a plant a weed? Because that is also anyway doing the same thing. Why is it that we are calling when we are a being in this situation, in this ecosystem? So that this understanding of photosynthesis should change the way you look at plants, because the function of the plant is photosynthesis. We should never call a plant a weed, and we should never reduce the biodiversity that we are supposed to have in an acre. More than 300 species of plants are to be seen to call it biodiverse and in an acre of land. And what is it that we do now? That 1 acre will be having only one species of plant. It is unnatural thinking. And so naturally there will be more and more problems. The biodiverse soil the biodiverse misses in the soil. So what happens? The biodiversity of life too misses in the soil. And so what happens is whatever is produced by the plant that you are growing will never be complete, because it can only live with what that particular plant can synthesize. But it needs the help of the other plants. The sugars that are being produced by them is also needed for this particular plant to produce. So from this, the base of the pyramid now becomes photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is the base, forms the basis of the pyramid of life, in not the soil. Photosynthesis feeds the roots and microbes, and then comes the soil. So this is the process by which we can make any soil back to life. Sorry, any dirt or any dust back to soil through photosynthesis, through plants' ability to photosynthesize. So now make sure that the function of every plant that we have in this system is to do photosynthesis and to feed the soil life, all the life. See, we are also sustaining on what is produced by the plant, the fruits, the nuts and all. Every living being that is there on this universe is sustained by the plant. And that is how the biomass is being eaten. After the rains, whatever biomass is created, all the species that is there in the ecosystem, it is their duty by feeding, they have to recycle the whatever biomass is there back to the soil. And that is how the mineral cycle goes on. So now you see there is a decomposition pathway on top, and there is a liquid carbon pathway at the top. I'm talking about beneath the soil surface. Decomposition pathway means whatever the leaves, the dead plants, the crop residue, everything falls on top, and that gets decomposed. That also gets formed into humus, but it's only 10% of humus formation, because that gets oxidized, and again from that only the carbon dioxide is released, and the system, that cycle goes on there. But bottom, majority of, depending on the stage of the plant, 40 to 70% of the liquid carbon gets utilized for the humus formation. That's why the more the deeper the roots go, the more darker the soil can become. So it is the increase opportunities for photosynthesis, that is by having diverse plants, as you see on top there. Diverse plants, not one. Diversity should be there. And by having a wide diversity of plants of different heights and leaf shapes. Right? As we had discussed, the taste, the sugar of that is what is produced from a mango is not the same that is produced from a jackfruit. See, if you see the sap itself, both are different. So it varies. The capacity of each leaf to produce sugar is also different. So it is the photosynthetic capacity and photosynthetic rate, not just biomass, that drives the sequestration of carbon dioxide. That is, it is not just the decomposition pathway. We have to rely more on the liquid carbon pathway. It is not that the decomposition pathway is bad, because that actually cools the plant. It is the habitat of all the soil life. You know? The millipede, centipede, and all are living because of the decomposition pathway. So both are needed. What I'm trying to say is, since we are going to converting the dirt to soil, more emphasis has to be given to the liquid carbon pathway. That means 365 days, there should be a plant growing. And you should never call a plant a weed, because it is also performing the same function as your rice plant is doing, or the wheat plant is doing. Photosynthesis. So what is the difference between photosynthetic capacity and photosynthetic rate? Photosynthetic capacity is nothing but the amount of light intercepted by green leaves in a given area. Supposing you have 1 acre of land. How much of light is being intercepted by the plants that is you have kept or you are growing in your land? So it is a assessment of a property as a whole, or an area of land. How much light is being intercepted? Number 2, not just how much time in a given year, that is in 365 days, how much time it is being intercepted. Are you intercepting 365 days or only during the cropping season? So then the capacity is not good. Photosynthetic capacity is high only when it is intercepted throughout the year. Not only throughout the year, with how many types of leaves. It should be with different types of leaves. That is what photosynthetic capacity is. Photosynthetic capacity of your farmland depends on how many days with how many types of leaves you are harvesting the full sunlight. That means you should not spill the sunlight that falls on your property. It should be 100% harvested. It's so easy. Just have a living leaf there. It will, as soon as it falls, it starts the work. So that increases the diverse types of sugars that are being pumped into the soil, and it increases the soil life, thereby increasing the fertility of the soil. It is very easily, it can be measured. Just have a soil thermometer, and when you measure the temperature of your soil, if it is same as below or same or below our body temperature, don't worry, you are safe. That soil is good. Your photosynthetic capacity is good. Whereas photosynthetic rate, it is the rate at which the plants are able to convert light, energy into sugars. How fast it is going. What is the quantity of sugar that it is producing? That is the rate. In this much time, how much is doing. That the photosynthetic rate is about a plant, photosynthetic capacity is about an area of land. That's the difference. And efficient, so the photosynthetic rate efficiency increases. It is dependent on the 4 ecosystem process or services that the soil has. That is the mineral cycle, the solar energy flow, the water cycle, and the communal dynamics, which we will be discussing tomorrow. It is based on that the photosynthetic rate is involved. More diverse soil life increases the rate. So the photosynthetic capacity is also related to the diversity, and the photosynthetic rate also increases when there is diversity. That means one root, with the root of one plant, when it comes in connection with the root of another plant, it is then that the photosynthetic rate increases. Not when it comes in connection with the same type of root or the same plant. So we need to have a diversity there. That is something. It can be measured with a refractometer. This is something that is available in the market here. Through that, we measure the sap, or we take a mango, we take the juice, put it in the refractometer, and you will measure what is the Brix. That measurement is called the Brix. That is the total sugar and the mineral sugar. How is it reflecting, or how does the light that passes through it gets refracted, and that is measured. The higher the refraction means lot of nutrients in it. So by measuring that, we can understand whether the photosynthetic rate is high. And it has been found out that plants with, they produce, or the leaves, the leaf juice or the fruit juice or the stem juice, if when it is above 12 or 14, it is considered that that plant will never be attacked by an insect. So then only then the photosynthetic rate is good, and as a result, it will not attack. When a plant is being destroyed by the insect, it simply means the photosynthetic rate is less, or the photosynthetic capacity is less. And when you measure the Brix of that particular fruit, you will understand it will be low. So these two instruments can we very easily understand how your soil is functioning. So now we have 2 soil pictures, acres of land. So now you can very well understand where the photosynthetic capacity will be more. See, on the left one, it's a monocrop, and there is space between 2 rows. So there is the photosynthetic capacity is less. And since it is monocrop, naturally the photosynthetic rate also will be less, and the output that comes out of that particular thing also will be less in nutrients. You may be producing tons, but it will be less in nutrients. The same land, if you have something else growing, different types of things growing, as you see on the right, the photosynthetic capacity and the photosynthetic rate also will increase. And the nutrient content in the food that is produced with such a system is less. Because nature doesn't crop as a monocrop. It can do only with biodiversity. Nature doesn't do it like that. This is human doing. The left one is human doing. It is that consciousness is a human doing consciousness. The other one, it is not absolutely perfect, but still there's a human being concept in the right way. See, this is one method that people do, that you put the mulch around the plant you grow so that you don't have any other plants. But here also, the photosynthetic capacity is less and the photosynthetic rate will be less, because 100% cover 100% of the time, preferably through living plants, is the better option to harvest sunlight to improve the fertility of land we are managing. This is a good option. You are actually preventing the land getting heated up. It is better than keeping it bare, but it is not the best. The produce will be best only when there is living leaves on top. This is what it wants. It should be diverse. Each plant supports different type of microbes. The greater the diversity plants, the greater the diversity of microbes. The greater the diversity of microbes, it is a total. This particular property is, this land became, it was a totally sandy soil. And after keeping cows, now this property has become like this. It is with the impact of cows that this property became so much diverse, and the water holding capacity and everything has increased after this system of regenerative farming was adopted. So the plants are the be all and the end all of our landscape. That means if the plants are there, that will improve the landscape, and to end the landscape also, plants without plants. So if the plant decides how much photosynthetic capacity your land has, decides the fate of your landscape. See the left one, no life. So photosynthetic synthesis supports all life on earth, all life. Without photosynthesis, there would be no soil. This particular thing we have to, I will just pass through because it is of a lot of value for you. The thing is, see, every plant does photosynthesis. So you see the bottom one, the first stage, it is the production of complete carbohydrate. Successful photosynthesis, production of complete carbohydrates, resistance to, at that particular stage, it becomes resistant to soil-borne fungal pathogens. When at that particular level of just sugar being produced, it is able to protect the plant from fungal attack. Then it goes to the next level, that is the production of complete proteins. Root exudates to microbes who release nutrients in plant available form, resistance to insects with simple digestive system. So when this protein synthesis also happens in that particular plant, it is able to resist the simple insects with simple digestive system. Here we have to understand one thing. It is called the production of complete proteins. See, we have a pack of notes of 2 lakhs, that is 200 notes, with 2000 notes, it becomes 2 lakhs. But if one or any number of notes are fake notes, can we say it is 2 lakhs? You cannot say. So it becomes complete 2 lakhs only when all the notes are not fake. Same way, the protein means carbohydrate with a nitrogen and a sulfur. When it combines, it becomes a protein. So nitrogen is what decides whether it's a protein or a carbohydrate. So the nitrogen that is taken by the plant to produce a protein should be it should not be a synthetic one. It should be an organic or a natural one. It should be from the organic source. When you add urea, it is a synthetic protein, a synthetic form of nitrogen. So the protein that is synthesized from a synthetic nitrogen source is an incomplete protein. So who is fond of this incomplete proteins? If we take it, it is bad for us. We will be severely attacked by viruses. We'll have virus disease. That is why you see the viral problem. Because the protein that we have ingested, the nitrogen in that protein is from the synthetic background. So then they have to come to clean up the mess. The same way for the plant, when the protein that it is synthesized is incomplete protein as a result of the synthetic nitrogen that it has used, naturally it becomes incomplete protein which is liked by the insects. So they come to clean up the mess. So that is why you have a severe attack on a farmland where you have used synthetic nitrogen, because it is incomplete proteins that has been produced. And then when there is good proteins, and then the next stage with good soil life, the same plant produces this third stage, that is the fats and lipids and oils. And when they are being produced, that is a time when you see the leaves glowing. You can see the leaves will be glowing, will be glow because of the waxing, because of the fats and lipids that is produced by the plant. And after that, it goes to the fourth stage where it produces the plant secondary metabolites. This plant secondary metabolites is very important as far as a plant is concerned. This is what gives a particular smell for the certain leaves, because that is what prevents and attracts certain types of insects. So every plant actually harbors certain insects. It's not that every insect will kill. Certain insects like certain plants, and that plants also like those insects. And it is by the prick of those insects that this plant is able to produce of this plant secondary metabolites. Because when that insect comes for its food, at that particular time when it pricks, a message is sent down to the soil. I need to produce more plant secondary metabolites. Give me those nutrients. And when there is soil life, the plant helps the plant to produce the plant secondary metabolites, and that particular thing is produced. And so what happens is, that is what protects the plant from other insects. So each plant, has a different secondary metabolites, and it has a different smell. That is why when you make an organic pesticide, they are using different leaves, and it is this, they are banking on these plant secondary metabolites to protect that insect from a pest attack. So that is how it is. So we need to understand the plant secondary metabolite production is important. What is it dependent on? It is dependent on the soil life. If you have added any urea or any synthetic thing on the ground that affects the soil life, that means it cannot produce the plant secondary metabolites. So how can it protect itself from the plant, from the insects? It cannot even feed the insect it likes. Then what about the other insects that come for food? So this is very important. So it is only a sick plant that can be attacked by insects. Trophobiosis has its foundation on the premise that insect and disease pests cannot utilize complete proteins and carbohydrates as a food source. Only when that plant is producing incomplete proteins can it be attacked by other life. And the more this plant secondary metabolites, when the cows or the other animals, when they graze, they should eat these different types of plant secondary metabolites, diverse. That is what keeps the animal from any insect attack or any worm attack. That is how it is. And that is how the life in the rumen of the cow also will be able to produce more different types of nutrients, and the milk also that comes from such a cow will be amrita. That is how it is. So this plant secondary metabolites, the topmost stage of a plant growth, it can happen only when there is good soil life. So the degree of plant health and immunity is based on the plant's ability to form structurally complete compounds. And structurally complete compounds can be produced only when there is life in the soil. Only when the soil is dependent on the resources that is provided by the plant, not the resources that is provided by us. Then only that complete thing can. So when there is complete carbohydrates, complete proteins, and complete plant secondary metabolites, that the plant becomes healthy. So this is a nutshell of what this is. You can refer more. It is the sources there. You can refer more and understand more about it. So from this particular slide, see, in US, Now, based on the bricks reading, you see at the bottom, you see the bricks level of that particular orange is 15, and the cost is, you see, 398. See the other one, it is 10, and the cost is 190. This stage is coming for this. It has started already. And now they are developing such a situation where with the mobile itself, they are trying to add one more system so that any fruit that you're purchasing, you can check the bricks and purchase it. This system is coming now. You cannot be cheated. So this ensures that the food that we are eating is from a soil that has life. And it is not being, you don't need to use any pesticide in such a situation. And this food, which is high bricks, will improve our finer tissues. The other one will damage, it will not improve our fine tissue, will just be the same. That's it. So just listen to this. This is our job, facilitating carbon pump in the soil. Just see, it is a slow motion video of how the exudate comes out through the roots.
4/7, why? Right here, this is a slow motion video showing liquid sun leaking into the soil, feeding microbes. This is our job, producers. Energy flow to feed these guys.
And that exudate is coming to feed the soil life. That is why it has come there. Different types of things are there, and it is that exudate that feeds them. Please do not forget this. We are supposed to manage all the beings, the billions and billions of types of beings that in that particular ecosystem that we are managing. It may be microscopic, it may be macroscopic, and all are fed because of the plants that is growing there. And each species of that is living in knows the plant it likes, and it is helping in the seeding of that particular plant. All that we need to do as a farmer is just orchestrate their functions. Please do not remove any plant that is coming on its own on your property. That knows why it is there, and there is a plant person who has planted it and have faith in him. He also needs to survive in your ecosystem to accept you as a being. So this is the place, that place around the root is called the rhizosphere. That is where the trading happens. The exudates come, that is given out, and the microbes give the nutrients. And so that full trading, it is much more than our stock exchange or whichever exchange where the exchange of money or whatever. This is what sustains us, or any bank or any temple or any airport or whatever it is being sustained only because of this trading that is happening at the root level. And if it is the trading is proper, you see, this is how the root will look. It will be like a sticky mass. All the mud will be sticking onto it, and it is called the rhizosphere. Liquid carbon sugar for minerals, sold for minerals and water. So fertile humus rich is a byproduct of photosynthesis and microbial resynthesis. And the carbon, just imagine you have a roof and there is a frame that holds your tiles. And that frame is actually the carbon in the soil. Just imagine you have removed the frame, all the thing will fall down. Same way you look down, it's a carbon that is holding the nutrients. If the carbon is low, then it leads to the leaching of minerals when it rains. So that much important it is. So now you know how carbon is formed. Majority of the carbon is formed by the liquid carbon pump. It is not that the decomposition pathway is not enough. That is also needed, but we have to see there's a live plant rather than having a dead leaf on top. Dead leaf on top naturally happens when you have a live leaf there. So that we needn't worry. But having a live leaf can happen only when we behave as a human being. It's a human doing that removes the plant. We have to behave like a human being. See, this is what happens. That soil on the left, when there is the plants are exuding, the color changes. The more air, it will be almost half will be air that is there, and water. the soil carbon increase, organic matter increase, everything will be in proportion, and any drop of water that falls on it will go down also. That is how it will become. What happens when soil organic matter increases in the soil? For every 1% increase, it is able to hold 94,000 liters of water per acre. That is nothing but in 1 square meter, it will hold 1 big bucket of water extra. That is 24 liters per square meter when 1% of organic carbon increases. See, when we say that, 1 millimeter of rain fell on my property, it simply means on 1 square meter, 1 liter of water fell. That is how we need to understand. So when in a place where there is 500 millimeters of rain, just imagine what is your average 500? Means 500 into how much millimeters there into that. It becomes the total water that 500 liters fell on 1 square meter. So 1 acre means 500 into 4,000. That is 20,000 liters of water has fallen on your land. And you should be able to hold it. That is what organic carbon does for you. So there is a Vedic quote which says, the plovers are the linchpin of the world. So what linchpin means, you see that bullock cart and you have a pin that is holding the tire. So in case that goes, the whole thing will fall. That is how the plovers have the role. That means the soil has to be porous, and that is because of the plovers. We misunderstood it, this statement, and we started using equipments to plow it. But actually, your plowing equipments is not what is meant here. It is the soil life. All the soil life fed by the plants, that's the root exudate and crop residues, constitute the real plovers. You can see on the right side what all them to put together, their functions put together with the help of the plant exudate is what constitutes the plovers. The major role is done by the roots. They are feeding the full plovers, and the soil will look like what is seen on the left. It is not by plowing. It is with the help of the plovers. So here also again we understand from the paradigm, the resources are provided at site. We need import anything. This is how the soil should be when it is the plower. This is what is meant. But what did we do? We started plowing. So there is a slogan which says, what sin or damage a fisherman incurs in the course of 1 full year, how much ever fishes he catches, the same is incurred by a driver of a plowshare made of iron in the course of 1 day. That is, if a plower plows with a metal plow for 1 day, it is equivalent to the sin that is committed by a fisherman who has fished for a full year. You can imagine how many fish he has caught. That is the sin that is prescribed for a person who uses a metal plow. If you remember the first day, what Madhaprabhu told, the metal plow is what modernized the Mother Nature. We have now done all these so-called developments was made possible only because of the metal plow. So that is this is the sin that happens when we use the metal plow. So now I'll share one video. You can, this video is self-explanatory, and you will understand what the plowing is doing.
Ploughing is a pretty radical idea for any farmer. But looking at some old footage from our farm, the damage it causes is now pretty obvious. This is our fields back in the 80s. The life in the soil is a feast for the birds. After 20 years of the same treatment, no birds, the soil is dead.
Sir, we cannot see.
Turning the...
What's it? You can't hear?
We are not able to see the screen.
No. It is viewable. Yes, we can see your screen.
Yeah, it is visible.
Oh, yeah. So see, what has happened here is, from that video you can understand. See, the first time when the tractor was going, it was actually dislodging all the soil habitats, their habitat was disturbed. And they came out and it was a feast for the birds. And as it kept on going, now there is no flowers at sight. And so now the machine is doing it. And you see, at this stage, there is no soil life. This is where we are going. This is exactly what we call dirt. And this is a stressed condition, as Mother Prabhu, it's a stress condition of this soil. And whatever comes out of it can only give you stress.
Plowing.
So our aim should be to allow sunlight to fall only on living leaves and not on dead leaves or bare soil. That should be our aim. We need to harvest every ray that comes from the sun. That is how the profit is. Because a fertile land, only a fertile land can give a quality life. And only a fertile land can give you quality water, quality food. And the people who live on this are the wise people. If you remember the slogan with Mother Prabhu told, Annam, Jalam Annam Subhakshanam, that is the most valuable jewels. And that can come only from a fertile soil. And fertile soil can come only when there are plants living on it. And not just plants. 365 days plants should be living, and it should be different types of plants. Then only you will have a quality food, quality water, and quality and wisdom, because that can improve the finer tissues. So plants, by their function of photosynthesis, uses the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, replaces it with the life-giving oxygen, supports the soil microbiome. Microbiome means the soil life, regenerates the topsoil. That is the topsoil here, it is a decomposition pathway, and restores water balance to the landscape, enhances the nutrient density of food. I told you that when the nutrient density in the soil improves, the nutrient density in the food also improves. Increase the profitability of agriculture. Profitability of agriculture is when the more you grow, the more fertile the land becomes. That is our paradigm. Om Purnamadam Purnamidam, that is what it says. That the more you grow, the way I have prescribed, then the more you grow, how much ever the population increases, the fertility of the soil will only increase. But there's a way to grow. It should be grown with the biodiversity. So in Srimad Bhagavatam, there's a 7th chapter, 7th canto, 2nd chapter, 12th sloka. It speaks about how Hiranyakashipu destroyed the people around. What is the technique that he used? I'm sorry to say, the technique that all the universities that we have at present on this earth is teaching this technique. That is, immediately go wherever there is good protection for the cows and brahmanas, and where the Vedas are studied in terms of the Varnashrama principles. Set fire to those places and cut from the roots the trees there, which are the source of life. That is, remove from the roots. When we construct all these buildings, universities and whatever it is, haven't we removed from the roots? We have removed the plants from the roots. This is why we are all learning from Hiranyakashipu Institute of Medical Sciences, Hiranyakashipu Institute of Engineering, Hiranyakashipu Institute of Veterinary Sciences. Everything, it is based on this principle. It can happen only by removing the, from the roots. That is when development takes place. The development that is taking place. So you cannot blame whom should be blamed. It is the decision that we decided the last time. It is the decision that we have taken that has damaged the soil. What is the decision that we take? How are we going to manage the soil? The way we saw only us in that system, but now when we see diverse soil life being fed by the soil with the plants that are growing, it's a totally different way of seeing things. That as we behave like a being, and that is when we will see flourishing, or the quality of life comes only then. So ultimately, the only wealth that can sustain any community, economy, or nation is derived from the photosynthetic process. Green plants growing on regenerating soil. That is what sustains us. To forget how to dig the earth and tend the soil is to forget ourselves. That is, using a metal plow It's like we have forgotten ourselves. The nation that destroys its soil destroys itself. So these are some of the quotes that million persons have given, and it is all saying the same thing. Thank you. So this particular, from this PPT or this presentation, we have understood the function of plants, and that as a summary, it is that the only way by which we can sustain on this planet is with the help of the photosynthesis function that the plants do. Anything, all even human beings or cows or whichever thing you say, it can survive only with the help of plants. And that is the function of the plant. And the photosynthesis is the base of the pyramid of life. Now I pass on to the host, and if any questions are there, it can be asked.
Yeah. Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
There is 15 minutes more. Any questions?
Yes. Thank you very much, Prabhu, for your enlightening session. This is really a wonderful session, actually. So, yeah, now I would request the participants to raise their hand and ask the question. Sri Kumar Prabhu, can you just no, stop the screen? I mean, screen sharing.
Okay.
Yeah. 1 minute. Yes. Now, first question goes with our Arun Singh Rathore, Prabhu. Yes, please, Prabhu, go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Pranam, Prabhu.
Such an honor to see you after so many days.
Yes.
So the question is that for big land holding,
yes,
like between me and my brother, we are managing 80 acres.
Yes.
How do we ensure that we are able to have a proper biodiversity, and still with the labor issues that we have, how do we manage that? Because we are forced to use mechanization. During this October and November month, when we were supposed to harvest, we had no labors. It was only me and my brother. So we both had to sit on one tractor each, and we had to do this for 2 months. We did harvesting on 80 acres.
Yes.
How can we do that, with the biodiversity? I am, scientifically and logically, I am fully sold to this whole idea.
Yes.
After our session in 2015, I have done the research. I have also done the what you call as in a small area. I did it, and I got very good results.
Yes.
But without labor, I am unable to manage, Prabhu.
Yeah, it's true. See, the name of the course itself is the common sense management or approach to managing a landscape using livestock. So that means we are using all the soil life, of which man is also a being. You can use man. There is nothing wrong in using technology, provided you see that the ecosystem process is not disturbed. So diversity, doesn't mean that diversity doesn't mean that of the 80 acres you have, 5 acres you are giving for rice, 5 acres you are giving for wheat. That is not diversity.
Yes.
Diversity means you need to have different types of plants grow, and that
All
I think we have
together.
discussed alley cropping, pasture cropping, everything has to come.
Yes.
So the best method I would advise you is to refer pasture cropping. Pasture cropping is the best, wherein you are also cropping at the same time you have 200 to 300 varieties of plants. If you can refer to pasture cropping, and we will discuss further on it, that is how we manage it. There's a technique of managing it, and with that procedure we can do. And it needs the presence of trees. Everything has to come. And I'm sure you will really enjoy it with less labor, because There is nothing wrong in using some labor or some machinery. It doesn't matter. Don't worry that you have used a machinery. The issue is it against the context you want to achieve? That is all what you need to say. If it is in favor of the context, there is nothing wrong in using it. But it needs a little bit of talk between us and a little bit of planning. And just to update you, you just refer to pasture cropping. And after you go through that, then we will have a discussion. Okay. Okay, thank you. Hare Krishna.
So, Hare Krishna. The next question is from Samin. Yes, Prabhu, please go ahead with your question.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. I'm joining you from your neighboring country, Iran. I have two questions. One is that you are mentioning about the diversity of the plants. Does that mean the weeds are also useful and should not be rooted out?
Yes.
So we do not touch the weeds?
No, they are also performing the same function as your main crop is doing. They are also doing photosynthesis.
So this is a myth. Is this a myth that weeds will take away the strength of the soil?
No, it won't, because it can only do photosynthesis. It cannot take away it can only pump the carbon down, and that, see, why is it that that particular crop has come there? It's a decision of that ecosystem. We have not put the seed. It was already there. But the seed which we have put is our privilege also. You know, I also, the land I own, I also want to grow something, but there are many other soil life also in that particular system who also has to be fed. They have decided to keep that particular plant there.
Well, I'm so happy to hear that, because that will save a lot of time and labor and money.
Yes.
If we just don't touch the weed.
Yes, I will ask you one good question. For years and years, we have been trying to remove the weeds. It was initially done manually, and now then we started using technology. Now we are using chemicals. Which is the weed that we have been successful in removing? There is not even a single weed. So that means we have only changed the way we are removing the weeds. It was hand plucking, then it became technology, then it became chemicals, but that didn't change the way we see the plant. Now what we need is we have to change the way we see the plant. Accept it. It is a cover crop only. See, now there is cover cropping has come. No, along with your main plant, if you want the complete plant, so the root to be living roots, that means now the new system is grow cover crops. That means the remaining area where you have the plant, you are cropping something else which you are not harvesting. The same way the wheat is also a cover crop only, which you needn't even purchase any seeds. See, I will give you in another good way. To make biryani, I hope in Iran also this biryani is there. You know biryani?
Iran is what? Sorry?
Biryani, that is a food dish that is made with rice and different spices and all. So
yeah, steamed rice with chicken.
Chicken or vegetable. It can be vegetable biryani or it can be a non-vegetarian biryani. That is, you are mixing different vegetables and cooking with the rice.
Yeah.
So to make that biryani, it cannot be done with rice alone. You need different spices to make the biryani. The same way, a rice plant cannot produce the rice it is supposed to make by just a rice plant alone. It needs the nutrients that has to be supplied by the plant that grows along with it. And then only that particular rice plant will have the nutrients it is supposed to deliver. Now the rice that is delivering to you is not, it lacks nutrients. The weight itself is less of that particular rice. But when there is biodiversity along, and so what ultimately becomes the same biryani can be produced in that rice alone if you have the biodiversity. That means the plant secondary metabolite production, everything will be so high that there will be a particular taste for that rice. See, now the rice that we eat are all sweetened rice. It is not sweet rice. We need to eat sweet rice. And that sweet rice can be produced only when there is biodiversity. So when we add some sugar to rice, that means that sugar came from another plant. No, it is another photosynthesis produced. I hope you understood that. That is like mixing in your plate, the same mixing takes place beneath the soil also. To make a particular dish, you mix different things. No, the same way to make a particular produce from a plant, that mixing takes place below. When there is connection between different plant roots, and it is called the edge effect. And with that edge effect, that means two different plant roots come. That plant is producing a different nutrients. This plant is producing different nutrients. Different soil explosion takes place, life explosion takes place. And as a result of that, your particular crop will be able to produce a crop with high nutrients. So it is only a change in the way we see things. Because we have, madam, you have already spent lakhs to remove those weeds. And the same weed is still there.
Yes.
Yes. Money and the food produced is full of toxin.
Thank you very much. I have one more question. Is
Yes,
it okay if I ask that?
Yes, please.
Okay. My other question is that, you mentioned about plowing.
Yes.
Last week also you talked about plowing, and you said that there is just a minimum need, yes. Just enough to put the seed into the soil. And it makes all sense. Yes. And again, it saves money, labor, and everything. I'm just wondering, that just goes back to the scripture. It's just wondering why Lord Balarama was plowing. Why is he so famous for plowing if it is not good for the soil?
Very good question. I wanted someone to ask this question. That is a wooden plow. The question here is a metal plow.
That is?
A wooden plow. Wooden. It is made of wood.
Wood.
It cannot go deep.
Balarama's plow was made of wood.
Wooden plow. So wooden plow cannot go deep down. To go deep down only we develop the metal plow. So that is why that sin is added. So when you use the metal plow, it can only pass through a spongy soil, where there is the plowing done by the soil life. And the maximum that you need is just a small little bit of tilling to put your seed. And that plow of Balram respects the soil life, because it doesn't have a metal part. So we totally agree to use a wooden plow, not a metal plow.
Okay. Yes. Wooden plow. Where do we get wooden plow from?
It is gone. See, the things have gone. We have now come to that metal use of metal plow. We have put a metal thing at the end of the wooden plow, and now we start with the plow. Now the full thing is made of metal. That plowing instrument, no, it is full metal, no. But a wood cannot go deep. It will break. It will break.
No. But where do we, the actual round thing of the plow, was that made of wood?
No. The Balram's plow was made of wood. Now it is modified into that raw and all those things, no, with that behind the tractor. It is full metal. But original plow that was used was made with the wood only.
Okay.
So you just now imagine using a wooden plow on your cropland. How depth you will be able to go.
Thank you.
Yes,
Hare
Krishna.
Right.
Thank you very much, Mataji. And now the next question is from Sudhir K. Please go ahead with your question, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you for your wonderful presentation, very insightful and knowledgeable. So my question is related to regenerating barren soil or soil that has no life, or what we call it as dirt. So yeah, I know you mentioned, if I remember correctly, you mentioned a point saying that the only way in which we can convert dirt to soil is by growing plants or trees. So sometimes from my little experience, whenever I try to plant some seed in that soil which is barren, it doesn't plants don't come out. So I was also thinking of a desert example where there is sand. And I also remember you mentioned in one point of the lecture, you showed a slide as well where you said that there was sand before, and that the topography later got changed to it was greenery after that.
Yes.
Yeah, because of that. So my question is, in order for a barren soil to really become a fertile soil, is the starting point cows? Do we start with cows, or do we start with planting trees? Because I'm keeping the desert example at the back of my mind. For me, planting seeds doesn't work. I feel that planting seeds in soil like sand doesn't really bring much fruit. So can you please help me understand this?
Yes. Actually, this particular topic will come tomorrow in the community dynamics part, but still I will give some insight into it. There's a process in the community dynamics called the succession. That is, at that particular stage, whichever stage your soil is, when it rains, it permits certain types of plants to grow there. It may not be your desired plant. So when that starts to grow, many of which may be good for the cows, or whichever livestock you have there, bigger livestock you have there. And then as those plants start to grow, they will pump in carbon and their leaves should set, and then it will improve the soil life to a certain extent, and then it will be taken over by the next plant that can live on that, and slowly the plant, that particular soil will develop. That is called succession. So why you failed when you put a particular seed is that is well ahead of the succession. That particular seed which you wanted to put would have come later in the succession. That is why it happened. So when you are regenerating a land, we should have in our idea the succession process. What you may be wanting is something that can come later on only. So from here, I will request you to listen to tomorrow's topic on community dynamics, where I will be showing the pictures, how it was before, and then how the changes took place. And when it comes to the management of cows, I will show you how the dung fell and how the changes happen. So when it rains, whatever biomass is produced, which will be eaten by the animals, they are recycling it, and their dung and urine is falling on the land. So what happens is the soil is slowly building up. And on that biomass, whatever it has been recycled, more and different types of life start to come. And as different life starts to come, different exudate is being pumped to the soil. And so the soil life improves. That will facilitate your desired seed to grow. So you may have to wait till then. That is when you depend on the natural resources at site. No, I can't wait till then. Then the next option is you will have to import compost. That is very costly. So that is your choice. So the system that we are trying to say is, please go in tune with the succession and achieve your results. The other one is very costly. When you think of compost, that is again because of plants only you got it, but that is from another soil. That means another soil is getting damaged when you are trying to generate your soil. So it is actually ideal only when you generate life from your own soil at the site. So that needs a little bit of time and little bit of understanding, which I'll explain it better tomorrow. But I think it makes some sense to you why your seed didn't grow.
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you for the explanation. Just a follow-up question, Prabhu.
Yes,
is it
please.
okay to?
Yes. Ask.
Is it okay to mix different types of soils? I ask this question because the soil that I have is not fertile, but
don't worry. See, believe that the sunlight falls on that land, some rain falls on the land, there is some air above the soil. Surely your land can develop. The issue is, do you want it at the site from your own land, or do you want to import it? If you want to import it, it is costly. That is the only decision you have to take. See, there is the Miyawaki forest. How do? They create that, but tons and tons of biomass is put on the soil, and they create that what would have happened in 3, 4, 5 years, they create in 10 days. And then they grow the seed on it. It is very costly. So it is good to work with nature, believing the succession process that the soil has. I think you will better understand tomorrow when that particular topic is taught.
Okay, Prabhu. Thank you very much.
Which part you are from in India? Which part?
Andhra Pradesh.
So then you would have seen that babool tree coming first, and then you will see a bird coming and putting a neem seed, and then you will see the neem seed growing through that babool tree, and finally the neem tree will completely cover the babool, and the babool will die. That is called the succession process. So that is the nature's process of doing. You can go in that way, or if you want it in a hurry, then you will have to bring all the biomass the babool would have brought there. It is very costly.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Prabhu. And the next question goes with Agga Vishnu Doddihel. Yes, Prabhu, please go ahead with your question.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
My question is, in an attempt to build soil in quick possible time, we use a lot of seed material and maybe diversified seed material, and whether that will end up with very feeble seedlings and we get nothing out of it.
Yes. That is because you have decided the seed. No, you have not decided the seed depending upon the soil condition. If you permit the soil life that will grow, the plants that will grow in that particular soil at that particular time, and then if you respect that and try to grow your plants, you may succeed.
Then what is the blanket recommendation then, sir? How with some 10 or 12 varieties of seeds we shall grow?
Initially, you should know what is the present situation of your soil. See, each soil, each plant needs a particular nutrient or the carbon, the water holding capacity, everything is needed. No. So is your soil at present ready to grow that particular seed which you have put? That you have to understand. That is why we talk about this succession. If you have reached that particular stage, it is okay. Otherwise, you can do it initially, but you will have to import compost. Tons of compost may have to be put, and then you can grow on it. That's a different story. But that is very costly.
So another question, Master.
Yes.
The weed like Cynodon dactylon, Garke,
yes,
is very rampant. It won't allow any other to be planted.
Yes. The Cynodon is our that which offer to Garesh, no?
That is same.
Yes. It is the best.
Once that's hello.
So its roots go very deep, and it is a very good soil builder.
But we don't allow any other plant to survive.
No, it is not allowing your decided, but something that you have decided is you are not able to establish. But it can be done. See, if you can accommodate that also and grow, like if you can grow trees there, if you can develop that particular area into silvipasture or something, it is possible. But if you are trying to remove this particular plant, means actually it has got deep roots and it is one of the best grass you can provide for your cows.
Sir, one final question, sir.
Yes.
In an attempt to build soil, do you recommend any soil management practices like building swales and all?
See, all the water that falls, with the rainwater that falls on your land is yours. And it is that water, you are supposed to survive on that water that is provided to you. But in cases wherein your neighbor is not following any principles, naturally there will be a lot of water flowing over his property and coming into your property, which you may have to manage. So in that case, if you need a swale or so, it can be done. But better not to have for your property. Whatever water falls on your property, try to do it with some plants growing on it and with a soil cover.
Some biomass.
Yes. Because if your neighbor is sending a lot of water, then you need to do some method. No, otherwise, it can take away your soil.
The best question is to divert it in first attempt.
Yes. Somehow you have to manage that water. Otherwise, you will lose your soil also. Plants can do it, Prabhu. See, the course name itself is how to do farming with livestock. And the definition of livestock here is all the soil life, moving soil life on the land. That means with animals, small or big, even microscopic or macroscopic, with them, because they are at your site. You needn't purchase. So there is a technique for it, which you will, when the full course is over, it will be revealed to you. You will get it as each course goes on, the more will be revealed to you.
Hare Krishna.
Correct.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. There are like 3 more questions, still more. Like now, the question goes for the question is from Y Arun Kumar, Arun K. Please go ahead with your question.
Dr. Sree Kumar Prabhu, namaskar. Thank you very much for the session. I had an honor of meeting you, in Bangalore sometime back. So this is the second session. I am an absentee landlord. I have a piece of land, about 30 acres of land, about 150 kilometers from Bangalore. One of the challenges that I'm having is that, weeds, right? Now, I don't want to remove the weeds, but there's so much pressure from the local guys who work in the farm. And they scare me saying that there are too many snakes in the farm and then it's a life threat and all. So I actually succumb to their pressure and then I get my land tilled. Okay. Now, every time I do it, I go through a lot of guilt, right? Because I know that removing weeds is not a good thing. But at the same time, some weeds are like, 5 feet to 10 feet high, for me, whenever I go, it's become so difficult to even step into my farm. So how do I balance it? This is the constant problem that I have. Yes. Sometimes I feel that if I should take a brush cutter and then kind of cut it, chop it, so that I'm not completely removing the weed itself, but at least I'm kind of controlling it. Is that the right way? When you're going through so much of pressures.
The best ways to introduce livestock, bigger livestock. The best way is to introduce bigger livestock like cows or bigger animals into your system, and who will manage the system. And in case if there's the second option, cutting, pruning is the second option.
Okay.
But never the best option to remove the weeds. Sorry, the remove the roots.
Okay.
Because that weeds that have come are actually the succession process that is taking place in your land. It is slowly building up your soil to finally develop into a climax forest. So this is stage of development. But what is missing in your land is the livestock impact.
Right.
And once they are there, each plant there is a livestock that will eat it. So that is why you need a diverse livestock entering in your land and moving in a particular way. Then it can happen. If you are not going to use the livestock, then the only option is technology, where you will need a knife or a chop cutter and all this. But that is another option.
Okay.
That is depending upon which resource you can source, you can do. There's nothing wrong in chopping down, but that is even more costly. But it is never removed from the roots.
Okay.
Because that too, it is Bangalore, so it is you call it a less brittle area. That means that you have some rainfall also there. No?
Right.
A good rainfall, so your land will immediately start to bring in more biomass growth there. So what is happening is you are not able to manage the biomass properly. So we need only a procedure of managing your biomass, and that shouldn't be the traditional way of using a tilling machine. It's only a change in management. That's all.
Right.
Let us from now, this moment always, not call any plant a weed. It is a wrong way to address a plant as a weed. We will call everything as plant, because she is also performing photosynthesis. And mind you, all the Ayurvedic medicines that we consume is from weeds.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Yes.
Thank you, Prabhu, for asking the question. And the next question is from Jagannath Mohan Das Prabhu. Please go ahead with your question, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Thank you so much. Yes, Prabhuji, thank you so much for making us understand the difference between the photosynthetic capacity and photosynthetic rate. Prabhuji, my question was that you said that there should be some living plant on our field 365 days. But once when we do harvesting of the field, then for some time, I think that there won't be any living plant in field. So please, if you can tell regarding this.
Yeah, if there are trees, what's the problem?
Okay, so if trees are there, then
365 days. No, 365 days.
Okay. Yes, and Prabhuji, the next question was that usually when we if we start when we go to buy a particular piece of land, like in case for starting some agriculture, so is it advisable that we can, like if we find some fertile or some property, which some land of which is just a little bit fertile, so there are too many questions which come, like the soil, the water should be sweet, and if the water is salty, then it will affect the crops and groundwater level also. And other thing is that if we can start with a barren land, we can get it easily at a low cost, but for that we'll have to keep too much of patience and wait for some time. If we are ready to wait.
No, Prabhu. See, you are traveling and you have reached the top of the cliff. So purchasing a land where there is no soil life, it is like you have reached the tip of the cliff. And now the only option for you is, if you again go further, you will fall from the cliff. So the question is, how can I save myself? At that time, the only option that you have is you have to put the reverse gear and go back. You cannot go further. If you go further, it will fall. So if a question is asked, how quick you will be saved, how much distance you will have to go back, to get saved means an inch you move, you're saved. No? So it is only a decision that you need to take, that I have purchased this particular land to achieve my context for a quality life. And I believe in the paradigm that the Om Purnamadam Purnamidam, that I have the nutrients at sight. And based on that paradigm, if you are planning your process, you will never have to spend, other than the money you are going to spend for the land, you will never have to spend anything, and your soil will come back. In no time, Prabhu, in no time. See, if this year, the water, if your land is able to harvest only 1/10 of the water that falls on your land, and by converting to the regenerative practices, if it is able to harvest 30% more, isn't that a change? Isn't that a change? So every inch of water that you are able to harvest on your land without any additional inputs is your profit. So you needn't wait. Patience means only you need to understand your context. And the decision you are taking is based on that context. Considering all the soil life, all the beings on the property, the economic side, the environmental aspect and the social aspect, then you needn't worry, you will achieve in no time. It is a simple science. If you have faith that a plant can develop your soil, Prabhu, it is simple. Have faith in it, and that faith will take you forward. I would advise you, if it is in line with your context, and if all the decision makers in your family all are happy with the land you are going to purchase, the principles are so simple, and if that is followed, you will attain the quality of life you are looking for.
Thank you, Prabhuji. So, Prabhuji, does that mean that like the first parameter which people suggest that the quality of water, like sweet water or salty water?
Yes. The saltiness all will be changed by the plant, Prabhu. Don't worry.
Okay, and even if someone have some barren land, that also by the passage of time can be cultivated.
Definitely. See, if by removing a plant, if you can make a soil barren, the same can be reversed.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Jagannath Mohan Prabhu. One last question is from our Hitarth Prabhu. He just sent me a chat message. Hitarth Prabhu, is it possible if you can come on mic?
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Yes. Please go on with your question.
Yeah, Prabhuji, I have so many bubble, not the good ones, the ones which has a big thorn.
Yes.
So I know from this principle, I should not be removing them because they are doing photosynthesis.
Yes.
But if I am planning to graze my cows,
yes,
then it might hurt them because I have seen that nearby farmers, they are saying that milking cow, it's not good to graze them in that land because it might hurt their udder. So what should I do? Should I remove babul or?
No need. See that babul, that plant with the, first of all, we should understand babul is a leguminous plant. Leguminous plant means the extent of soil nutrients that it is pumping is so high. So that it is a high quality plant already. The thorns are there because the thorny plants are coming because they do not want to be grazed or disturbed. The interesting thing that you'll be slowly seeing is, if you keep the cow in the same area for a long time, you will see that they have started to even harvest the bark of that particular tree. So nothing will happen to them. Since we are keeping them moving regularly, you needn't remove it. the maximum you may need to do is some bit of pruning, but never to remove the plant.
Okay.
Because in Chandwaji and Basi, it is only this babool that is growing there. All the cows are moving there.
Okay.
So far, the bulls have damaged the bark of the tree, but so far the babool has not damaged any cow there or any bull there.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, yes.
Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Yes,
So now the time is just running up. Now it's 9:20. So I think we have to end up the session. So
we can continue in another session. No, this doubt can be covered.
Yes, absolutely. So I think if everybody has more doubts on these topics, actually we can have a special session after the course. So
I believe that as the course progresses, whichever doubt you are having, each course, each session ends, almost all your doubts will be covered.
Yes.
And finally, the final day, still if you have any doubt, we will provide time for you to ask.
Yes. So as of now, this is the topic for today. And still, if you feel like if you are all having any doubts, you can ask the speaker by just mailing. You can mail your questions to help@dirttosoil.org, and speakers are happy to reply to your questions. Okay, so thank you very much. Then we will meet again tomorrow at 7:30 p.m. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.